Got it.
All
Got it.
right. Awesome. So Ross, I'm glad you're here. And just to start out, I want to tell everybody who's watching this video, I just want to give a little synopsis of what this is. And recently I decided to invite some of my good, amazing friends. I have so many amazing friends that are up to so many amazing things in the world that have wonderful stories about their life, what their lives were like, what happened, what they started saying yes to, and then what they did to create the life that they have now, and then what they're offering in the world. So that's what this is about. This is a
Mhm.
30-minute little clip of Ross, my friend Ross. I invited Ross today to tell his story of what it was like, what happened, what it's like now, and then what he's doing to add good to the world, and how he's offering people to come into his space. So thank you for everybody who's watching this, and I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to Ross and let Ross introduce himself. Hi, Ross.
Hi, Robert. Yeah, it's a great thing you're doing here, man. I mean, since I've met you, I've met some amazing people, and just hearing people's stories about what they've overcome is so inspiring and so uplifting, man. So, yeah, thank you for inviting me, and I really appreciate you giving me this chance to have a chat and hopefully influence some people.
Yeah, thanks for coming. I appreciate you coming and telling your story, because it's going to be powerful for a lot of people, so thank you for that.
Yeah, anytime. So yeah, my name's Ross. I'm Ross Wykes. At the moment, I work as a life coach and a counsellor, and I have an absolute fascination and a passion with the mind and how the mind influences us. And for me, changing my mind, in a sense, was really the starting point to living a better life for me. And what I realize is that so many of us, we change a lot of things in our life, don't we? We change our clothes, we change what we drive, sometimes change our partners, but we never really take the time to change what goes on up here. And that's what's going to make the biggest difference. That's huge, man.
Yeah, yeah, that is huge. I love that. So tell me more. Tell me about what was it like? Because we all have that story from the past. Everybody that I've
Hmm.
ever talked to that's made a shift, and they see the shift in the mind and the thinking and the perception, what I'm hearing you talk about there, which is so
Yeah.
powerful, that I've had as well. It's like you go from like, oh, everything's terrible, to like, oh wait, there's a way. There is a way. Oh
Yes.
maybe, and you start to do that, and it starts to show up, and you're like, maybe there is hope. Maybe I can
Yes.
actually, maybe my life can be better. And then it starts to show up, and then you get a little bit of excitement of like,
Mm.
maybe my life is not always gonna suck. I don't know if it was like that for you, but that's what it was like for me. Maybe I'm not always gonna screw everything up, and I could actually do something right for a change, right? That's
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
What was it like when the past? What was your life like, um, that led you to that place? You just tell me about what it was like.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I think you've explained it quite well there. I mean, I did have that moment where I realised things were going to be okay, and I didn't have to. I mean, can I swear on this, Robert? Is that okay? Yeah, yeah. I realized I got to a point where I realised I didn't have to fuck everything up because that's what I was doing, right? And yeah, for most of my adult life, my life was a fucking mess, mate. It really was. I was going down a really dark path, and it probably started when I was around 17, 18, because at that time in my life, I discovered alcohol. And yeah, believe it or not, alcohol leads you down a dark path. Who knew, right? But when I was younger, I was a shy guy. I struggled to socialize with people who I didn't know. And I really didn't like that about myself. But then I started drinking, and that took care of the shyness problem. And all of a sudden, I felt confident, I felt cool, and I thought, fantastic, I've solved it. Life's going to be great now. And I just loved the way it made me feel. I just felt like a different person. I just felt so much more relaxed. But as we know, it's not a solution to anything, is it? And pretty soon I was drinking more and more, and the quantities got higher and higher. And any excuse I could find to have a drink, I was using it. Like it's the cat's half birthday. Great, let's get shit faced. And that ruined my mental health. I felt low all the time. I was stressed out all the time, and I was just repeating this pattern. I'd spend the week just feeling low and recovering from a messy weekend. Then I get to the weekend again, I get shit-faced, and the whole cycle would repeat itself. And yeah, it took me down quite a dark path. And when I got to the point where I got really bad, and I ended up taking 2 overdoses in the space of a few months. And I thought that would change things. I thought that'd be the wake-up call I needed, but it didn't change anything because the alcohol was meeting needs that I didn't know how to fulfill. And then I started with drugs as well, and it was just, I could tell you some stories, but you get the gist of it. I was just going down a very dark path for several years, and things started to change when I was 26. It was almost 8 years to the day when we agreed to do this. It was, I think, March 15th, 2016, when things started to really change. And in the lead up to it, I'd had some serious health issues. I was at work one day and I started getting chest pains and I couldn't breathe. So I think I was having a panic attack. A few days later, I had a really bad case of gastroenteritis. And then about a week after that, I had horrendous tooth pain in this front tooth. And it turns out the nerve had died in my tooth and I had to have a root canal treatment. And at the time, I was coping the best way I knew how, with alcohol and drugs, and feeling sorry for myself. And I just got to the point where I felt like I was falling apart, mentally, physically, spiritually. And when things started to change, it was, I think it was a Tuesday. And the previous weekend, I got into a right mess. Lots of alcohol, lots of drugs. I lost my phone, I lost my wallet, and I was just a wreck, man. And I was sat on my bed and I was just thinking to myself, how did I let it get to this? How did I let it get so far? I was just thinking about everything that was wrong in my life. I was just thinking, I'm 26, I'm nearly 27. I've done nothing meaningful. I have no passions, I have no goals. I'm miserable. I'm dependent on alcohol and drugs. How the fuck did it get to this, And at the time I was reading the book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, it was the second time I read this book. And a line from that book just came to my head at that time. And I don't know the line exactly, but it said something like, if you can create a miserable life for yourself, then the opposite is true. You can create a good life. But it starts with taking responsibility. And for the first time, I realized that I was responsible for my life at that time. I created a miserable existence for myself, I made the choices that got me to that point, And I realized that if I can make bad choices that lead me to feeling the way I did and doing the things I do, then I can make better choices. And I think that was the first time in my life, in my adult life especially, that I actually took responsibility for my life. I actually took ownership of it, and that's a huge one, man. As you know, when you take ownership of your situation, you take the power back, and you've got choices. And for the first time, I felt a little spark. I felt a little bit of optimism. I thought, maybe I can turn this around. Maybe I can start living a better life. And I thought, well, where do I start? So I went onto my phone, I went onto my emails because I was signed up to a few newsletters at the time. And at that moment, I kid you not, I get a newsletter through from Brian Tracy. He's like a success expert, entrepreneur, brilliant guy. And the subject line read, meditate like a Zen monk. And I thought, I could really do with that at the moment. And I read the email and it said, feel inner peace, stillness. I was like, yes, I could do with this shit right now. I need this in my life, So in the email, there was a link to a meditation soundtrack. It was about 15 minutes long. It said, just listen to this, see how you feel. So I listened to the soundtrack, and after 15 minutes, I just felt something I'd never felt before. I felt calm. I felt at peace. And I felt high as a kite, seriously. And believe me, at that time in my life, I knew what high felt like. But this wasn't a recreational high. This was a natural high. This was a high that your body can allow you to experience when you quieten this down, when you slow things down, when you breathe, And I felt good. And I thought about all my problems at the time, and they all of a sudden they weren't problems anymore. They were just things that were going on that I could deal with. And I listened to the soundtrack again the next day and the next day, and things just started to get better from then on. Like at the time, I was on antidepressants. I've been on antidepressants 3 times in my life by then, and after a few weeks of meditation, I was off the antidepressants. I've never been on them again. I've never been anywhere close to feeling like that again. And after a few weeks, I thought, what the hell's happened? Like, I've gone from being at the lowest point in my life to feeling the best I've ever felt in just a few weeks. I want to know what the hell's happened. So that sort of
Wow.
sparked this absolute fascination with the mind and thoughts, emotions, behavior, everything in between. So from there, I went and had some counseling as well, and that helped me to understand my belief systems, understand my thoughts, just understand the emotions that I was feeling. And I thought, if it's possible for me to go from where I went to where I am now, then it's going to be possible for others. And I began to realize there's a lot of people out there who are suffering. That they really, really are. And I wanted to do something to help other people and maybe help people stop getting to the point where I was. And from there, I studied as a counsellor. I got my diploma a few years ago, and then from there, I did Robbins Madonna's training with yourself, and I've got my own practice now, helping people with counselling and life coaching. And my full-time job, I work in a university, and I work in like a coaching role to students. And I'm currently working with our mutual friend Sarah, and we've recently done a wellness retreat, which was amazing. And we're looking at doing another workshop in June. And I'm really excited about where things are going. I really, really am. And I think the thing I'm most excited about is where my mind can take me, if you like, because it took me to the dark place. And I understand it now. I understand that my thought processes and the emotions that I was suppressing just took me down a dark place. But when you can understand your thoughts and when you can work with your emotions, it can take you to a much better place. And yeah, that's pretty much it from adulthood to where I am now.
Wow, that's a phenomenal story of you had such a quick shift.
Mm,
You read that line and you had that insight. And I know
yeah.
sometimes it can be really quick for people, and I love to hear that story. For me, it was long and drug out. It was like a battle the whole way. And I love to hear stories of people who
Yeah.
are that shift.
Mm,
Um, like you have read that line, and then the next thing it's like, oh, Brian Tracy sends you a meditation, and you listen
yeah.
to it, and you're like, whoa, I can get high on life. I don't need drugs. I don't need that stuff. And that's part of the drugs were part of my story as well.
Mm,
So I relate to that as well, and I love that you're sharing that, because there's going to be a lot of people out here that can relate to that are watching this, that
hmm.
are possibly people who are going through that now in their life, where they're
Yeah,
drinking and they're using
absolutely.
other drugs, and they're doing it on a daily or weekly basis, and that's something that's holding them back.
Mm,
And I love what you
absolutely.
shared about responsibility. So what were you doing for work whenever you were back in the day when you were drinking? What was your profession then before you got into counseling?
So I started as a traffic marshal. I go to like events and just sort of line the traffic up in a neat line, and then from there I went to retail. I did that for 5 years. I was miserable in retail. You know, I woke up every day dreading it because I had to talk to people I didn't know, and because I was feeling so low and anxious at the time, just the thought of talking to people I didn't know, just it was not a great career for me. And I didn't really go to a better career after that. I went and did door to door, which was even more in your face, trying to chat to strangers, you know. But did that for about a year, and then I went to work in a call center just on the phones, and that was actually better for me because I didn't have to speak to people face to face. It was on the phone, which I found a lot easier. And I did that for I think 8.5 years. So I did that for 3 years. Then I decided I wanted to do something. When I had this shift, I wanted to do something different. So I actually started working nights at the call center whilst I was going through my studies, and that was actually really enjoyable. But I knew that customer service, sales, that wasn't for me. You know, that kind of career wasn't for me. But I knew my career and my passion was in serving people and helping people. So yeah, I think 2 years ago now, I left customer service and started working at the university, and that's what I'm doing for the last 2 years.
I love that. I love that you're doing that, and that you're sharing your gift of that quick shift that you have, and you're helping people to find that for themselves, and
Mm,
helping lead people to what that is for them.
mm.
It's not the same for everybody, I've seen. What do you find with the people that you work with? What really helps them to see the shift for them?
What I think is I guess it's different for everyone, but I think everyone does have that little spark when they realize that things can change. And I think what people have to understand is that when it comes to their beliefs and their thought process and their emotions, it's a pattern, right? And I mean, I'm a big believer that what you believe about yourself, what you believe about the world is going to influence everything. So if you believe that you're worthless, you're hopeless, you're never going to make anything of yourself, then that's what's going to happen, right? That's going to influence your thoughts. Your thoughts are going to influence your emotions. Your emotions are going to influence your behaviors. Your behaviors are going to influence the results you get in life, and the results are going to reinforce those beliefs. And it's just a pattern, right? So for me, when I talk to people, I want to help them change their beliefs about what they believe about themselves and what they believe about the world. And I think that a big part of it is trying to change your behavior as well. I mean, if you can just do one small thing differently each day and you can break yourself out of that pattern, that can send a message to your brain that things can actually be different. Because that was a huge one for me. I was just living the same old pattern day after day, week after week, year after year. But when I started doing things differently, I think that's what really helped my mind start to shift as well. And it's funny. One of the people I'm working with now is recently had a shift, and he's realised that just by doing one thing differently in his day, like instead of getting up and looking at his phone straight away, he's now getting up and doing a couple of stretches, or he's doing a couple of breathing exercises. And he noticed that that pattern of picking up his phone every day just it wasn't very good for his mental health, because he was expecting people to get in touch, and when they hadn't got in touch, he felt miserable, and that was how his day started. But just by not looking at his phone to begin the day and actually doing something for himself, his whole day became better, and he's made some big progress, which is great to see. But yeah, I guess to answer your question, I think having a good think about what your beliefs are. You know, what do you really believe about yourself? Who do you believe who you are? Who do you believe that you can be? That's so important, because beliefs will influence every aspect of your life. And if you can change your beliefs, I think everything can change for you.
I love that. Change your beliefs to change your life, and change your
Mm,
thinking to change your life. And in your story, there's a couple things that stood out. One was when you realized that you were the one creating your life the way it was, that you realized, oh, I've been the one creating my life this way. And if
mm,
I created it this way, I can also create it the opposite way. I love
yeah,
that shift of,
absolutely.
because one of my things in my story was I used to blame my parents, my brother, I used to blame everybody in my life for the way my
Yeah,
life was.
I've blamed a
And
lot of people too.
that shift for me was really powerful when I saw that, wait, I created that through my thinking. And as long as I was blaming the other people in my life for where I was, I could never do anything about it. As long as
Yeah,
it was
exactly.
partially their responsibility of where I was in life. Well, my mom wasn't there for me whenever I was young, and then my brother was born and took away my attention.
Hmm.
And all these
Yeah,
stories, the beliefs, these were the beliefs that I had, the thoughts that I had attached to those experiences.
yeah,
um, and when I saw that, I got to, you said a powerful line. I realized I could take the power back. I love that line, take the power back.
yeah.
Because when we're blaming and pointing to the outside, I heard that in your story, then we're blaming the outside. So I love that you're sharing that. And another thing is, you're based in the UK, so there
Mm-hmm.
will be some people that are going to watch this that will likely be in the US. So how can they get in touch with you? Say somebody here in the US they want to have a Zoom call with you, they want to talk to you about your story, they feel really connected with what you shared, and they
Mm.
want to connect with you and have a call with you, to see, just to see what comes up from that. Are you open to
Sure.
that?
Yeah, open to that, man. Yeah, yeah. I'm in the
And
early stages of getting my practice going at the minute, and I am looking to work with plenty more people. And yeah,
beautiful.
so yeah, I'll try and make it as easy as possible to contact me. Um, Social media, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, all that jazz.
Hmm.
Can drop me an email at themindsetcoach@rosswykes.com. I'm just in the process of getting my website set up as well. I'll put a date on that for tomorrow. Forcing myself to get that done. Rosswykes.com, that's going to be. So yeah, plenty of ways to get in touch.
So Ross Wykes. And how do you spell your last name, Ross?
Wykes.
Wykes. And for anybody out there, Ross and I are friends on Facebook, I believe. So you can get
Yes, we are,
connected.
yeah.
You can get connected with, if you're having trouble finding Ross, you can come to Robert Twine and then look at my friends. I'm pretty sure you can find him through my friends list if you have trouble. I'm not sure how people, if they can find you through that. But then rosswykes.com.
rosswykes.com. That will be live tomorrow.
Okay, cool.
I will work on it
Perfect.
all day until it's up and running. All
Awesome.
my contact details will be on there, my social media links and everything.
I love what you're talking about there, commitment, and the person that you were working with that had that shift when they committed to doing stretching before they picked up their phone. And I love what can you tell me a little bit more about in your life, some decisions that you've made, commitments that you've made, and maybe some decisions you were choosing that were leading you down a path you didn't want to be down in other areas after you put down the alcohol, or some other choices that you were making that you chose, that you just decided to choose something more powerful to create your world in a more powerful way.
Yeah, I think one of the most, I guess, detrimental things that I was doing, choices that I was making, is I was choosing to, I guess, suppress emotions, right? So, I mean, I had no idea what emotions were. I mean, I knew what emotions were, but how they actually affected me and when they came up for me, I didn't know how to process them. So I was making the decision to repress these emotions. You know, that feels uncomfortable. I don't like that. Let me push that away, or let me have a drink, or let me have a cigarette, or let me use drugs, and then I will feel good emotions. So I was choosing not to feel whatever I needed to feel. And one of the things that drastically changed, I think, for me was I realized that when you do feel, you know, what we call negative emotions, I don't really believe in negative emotions. I think they all serve a purpose. Some feel good, some don't feel good, but they all serve a purpose. And the ones that didn't feel good, I was making a decision to block those out. And as we know, when you repress emotions, I mean, they're not going anywhere. They're just below the surface, and they will come back and they will bite you in the ass bloody hard. And what I learned was that when I do feel emotions that are unpleasant, that's just a human experience. You know, we all feel low sometimes. We all feel stressed or anxious or guilt or shame, grief, whatever it may be. But we try and we don't want to feel them because they're too painful. You know, we want to feel good all the time, but that's not a human experience. You know, that you can't go through every day feeling wonderful all the time. That's completely unrealistic. And when you do feel emotions that are unpleasant for you, for me, the decision I made was to feel them fully. You know, if I'm feeling stressed, if I'm feeling sad, if I'm feeling whatever, I'm going to feel that and I'm going to accept it. Like, okay, I feel low today. That's fine. I'm a human being. You know, I can feel low from time to time, but I'm not going to let that completely control me. I'm not going to let that dictate my day or my choices. I'm just going to be okay with feeling low. That's fine. And I learned ways to feel good. You know, I do a lot of running now. I eat much healthier. I meditate. I do yoga. I do breath work. I cold showers, which, you know, make me feel amazing. I talk to people if I'm not feeling great and someone says, "How are you?" I'll be, "Yeah, I'm just feeling a bit low today." And I have a conversation about it. And all these things, I just find them so powerful. And there's so many resources out there. There's so many things we can do on a day-to-day basis to feel good and to not allow our negative emotions to control us. And I think a big part of that is just making that decision to be okay with what we would call negative emotions. I think that's huge, man.
I love that share. Thank you so much for sharing that. And what I found that as well is when we have an emotion we that I've in the past called negative emotions, and when we try to keep that, and even a thought, we try to keep that thought away, no, I'm not going to do that. No, I don't want to think that. No, I don't want to feel that. It gives it teeth. I like what you said. It bites you in the back. And when we
Gives
hold it
it
back,
teeth.
it's
Yeah.
like, you don't want to feel me. You don't want to think me. Watch this. I'm going to get big enough that I'll push you down until you feel me, until you think me, until you acknowledge me. So
Mm,
I love that you're sharing that. It's such a powerful thing, and as a practice as well. And
mm.
this has been an 8-year journey for you.
Yeah, yeah.
You shared this has been a little over 8 years. March 15th, you shared 8 years.
Mm,
And I want people to hear that too, is this is it's something that it's a consistency. It's just keeping on. Show up. Because I bet
mm,
8 years ago you weren't doing cold showers, you weren't doing breathing practices, you weren't running. I'm guessing 8 years ago you weren't doing all those things at the capacity that you are
mm.
now. But
Absolutely not. No.
you built up to that over time. You started doing the meditation. Then you're like, well, maybe running, and then you found that helped you to feel better. I
Mm,
see that with people is over time we build up more and more things that allow us to feel at peace, at ease. We build up things that a way of approaching the world, a way of
mm.
showing up that helps us to be more productive, more happy, more peaceful, more of the time. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean we're not stressed at times. I want people to hear that it's not, we're not gonna, if you're drinking every day now and you stop drinking, it's not likely that you're going to be doing tomorrow you're going to be running 5 miles and you're going to be eating greens and you're going to be
Hmm.
meditating for 30 minutes a day and reading 20 books a day.
Yeah.
It's a slow process of building up what
Yeah.
works well. Would you agree with that? Is that something you found in your life as well?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it wasn't. It. I mean, yes, I had a shift and things started to change, but it's not like I gave up all of the bad stuff just like that. You know, it was a very slow process. I still drank, I still used drugs, I still had bad days, but they became less and less frequent, and they became much more sporadic. And I think I drank alcohol like 3 times last year. I haven't drank alcohol this year because I'm at a point now where it doesn't do what it used to do for me. It doesn't make me feel good. It makes me feel horrendous. If I drank now, say I had like 6 beers or whatever, I'll feel horrendous for a week, you know, and it's just not worth it for me anymore. But I think it is a slow process. You know, I have heard of people who can give up bad things, you know, like that, and fair play to them. But I think for most people, it is a slow process, and I kind of liken it to a seesaw. You know, you got a seesaw, and your bad habits sometimes outweigh your good ones. So if your bad habits are on the floor, your good habits are in the air. That's because you've got more bad habits than your good ones. So if you remove one bad habit and replace it with a good one, that goes a little bit like that. And then eventually you start building up more and more good habits, then the momentum shifts and all of a sudden it's the good habits that are in control. And when you've developed more good habits, when you've developed more ways of feeling good and getting your needs met, the things you used to do that weren't serving you, they tend to become they did just sort of phase out. I mean that's kind of what has happened for me. You know, there's a lot of things I used to do, unhealthy things to get my needs met, but I just don't really feel the desire to do them anymore. It's mainly because I know healthier ways to get my needs met.
Beautiful. Thank you for the amazing conversation. And again, I want to encourage people. You felt like you connected to Ross's story. Please reach out to Ross on Facebook, or you can look up Ross and send him a message at rosswykes.com. And this
Mhm.
won't be up until likely tomorrow anyway, so you'll have that all ready to go.
Sure.
rosswykes.com and Ross Wykes at Facebook. Thank you so much for coming here and sharing your story. This is going to be real.
Pleasure.
It's been very valuable for me. I love doing this. This is an amazing experience, and I love that you said yes. This is going to serve so many people, and
Mm.
so thanks for coming and allowing us to do this today.
Yeah, pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Robert. This has been great. It's been good to just own your shit, you know. Own your shit, then you can change your shit.
Love it. Okay, sounds good. See y'all. Take care.